Welcome to Fun Facts Online. Today, we are bypassing the usual pleasantries to dive straight into a development that sits right at the intersection of high-end biomedical engineering and your kitchen pantry. We are talking about the future of regenerative medicine, and surprisingly, it looks a lot like pasta. In the field of tissue engineering, scientists have spent decades hunting for the perfect scaffold. To understand why this is such a massive challenge, you have to visualize what happens when you try to grow an organ or repair a severe wound. You cannot just pile cells on top of each other. They would collapse into a shapeless blob. You need a structure, a framework, that supports them, much like the steel girders support a skyscraper while it is being built. But unlike a skyscraper, once the biological building is finished, the scaffolding needs to vanish. For years, the industry standard has been synthetic polymers like polycaprolactone, or PCl, and polylactic acid, or PLA. These are reliable plastics. They are easy to manufacture and easy to manipulate. But they lack what researchers call biological soul. They are foreign bodies. And while they do eventually degrade inside the body, they often leave behind acidic byproducts. Imagine trying to heal a delicate wound while the bandage itself is slowly turning into acid. It causes inflammation and can actually hinder the healing process. This is where the narrative shifts from a synthetic laboratory to a wheat field. Researchers have recently developed a method to turn ordinary wheat starch, the white flour used for bread and spaghetti, into high-tech nanofibers. They are calling this material Nanopasta. This isn't just a catchy name. It is a fundamental shift in how we approach the architecture of life. To appreciate why wheat is disrupting this field, we need to look at the molecular level. Starch is a complex biopolymer made of two polysaccharides, amylose and amylopectin. Amylose is a long, linear chain of glucose units, while amylopectin is highly branched. This balance is crucial. In cooking, it determines if your rice is fluffy or sticky. In bioengineering, it determines if your scaffold holds up or collapses. Wheat starch typically contains about 25 to 30% amylose. This specific ratio allows it to form strong hydrogen bond networks. When processed correctly, the linear amylose chains align to form a structural backbone, giving the material tensile strength, while the branched amylopectin adds flexibility. But the real magic happens when we look at how the body reacts to it. The human body is an expert at metabolizing starch. We have enzymes, like alpha amylase, specifically designed to break these glycosidic bonds. When a synthetic scaffold degrades, it becomes waste. When a wheat starch scaffold degrades, it turns into glucose. It literally becomes food for the regenerating cells. The scaffold supports the tissue as it grows, and then, as it dissolves, it feeds the new cells. It is a perfect, nutritive cycle. So how do we turn a pile of flour into a futuristic medical device? The technique is called electrospinning. It marries fluid dynamics with high-voltage physics. Imagine a syringe filled with a thick, honey-like polymer solution. You attach a high-voltage power supply to the needle. We are talking 10,000 to 20,000 volts. This electric charge overcomes the surface tension of the liquid, and a jet of fluid erupts from the needle tip. As this jet whips through the air in a chaotic, spiraling dance, the solvent evaporates, and the polymer chain stretches out, thinning down until it hits a collector plate as a dry, solid fiber. This creates a non-woven mat that looks like a sheet of paper to the naked eye, but under a microscope, it resembles a dense forest of vines. This structure mimics the natural extracellular matrix of human tissue with uncanny precision. Historically, spinning starch was a nightmare. Native starch granules are crystalline and stubborn. They do not dissolve easily. Researchers usually had to mix starch with synthetic plastics just to get it to work, which defeated the purpose of a natural scaffold. The breakthrough came from a team at University College London who asked a simple question: can we spin pasta? They found that ordinary white flour could be dissolved in formic acid. Formic acid, which is naturally found in ant venom, disrupts the hydrogen bonding in starch granules, effectively uncoiling the molecular chains without destroying them. When they electrospun this mixture, they created nanofibers with an average diameter of 372 nanometers. To put that in perspective, if a strand of angel hair pasta were the size of a giant redwood tree, these nanofibers would be the size of a garden hose. This creates a material with massive surface area. A single gram of this nanopasta could have the surface area of a tennis court, providing ample space for millions of cells to anchor and grow. Now, let's talk about cellular mechanics. A scaffold is not just a passive waiting room for cells. It is an active instructor. Cells have transmembrane receptors called integrins that act like hands. They grab onto the surface they are sitting on. Through a process called mechanotransduction, cells can sense the stiffness and topography of their environment. If a scaffold is stiff, bone stem cells take that as a signal to deposit calcium. If it is soft, they might become cartilage or fat. By adjusting the cross-linking of the starch fibers, essentially tying the molecules together tighter, engineers can tune the stiffness of the nanopasta to tell stem cells what to become. Furthermore, the porosity of this starch mesh solves one of the biggest failures in early tissue engineering: core necrosis. If a scaffold is too dense, cells grow on the outside and seal it off, starving the cells in the middle. The electrospun wheat mat is highly porous, allowing nutrient-rich fluids to soak all the way through, keeping deep tissue cells alive. And because starch is hydrophilic, or water-loving, it wicks fluids instantly, unlike synthetics that often repel water. The applications for this are staggering. Consider chronic wounds, like diabetic foot ulcers. These are wounds that stall and refuse to heal. A nanopasta dressing offers a multi-pronged solution. It allows the wound to breathe while absorbing excess fluid. It blocks bacteria but lets oxygen in. And as it degrades, it releases glucose to fuel rapidly dividing skin cells. Beyond skin, we are looking at drug delivery. Because the fibers are spun from a liquid solution, we can mix drugs directly into the flour. Antibiotics, painkillers, or growth factors become trapped inside the nanofibers. As the fiber slowly dissolves in the body, the drug is released. We could engineer a bandage that releases pain relief for the first few hours, or a bone scaffold that releases growth factors over several weeks. Speaking of bone, for defects too large to heal on their own, wheat starch reinforced with calcium phosphate can serve as a void filler. It provides the structure. Osteoblasts migrate in, build new bone, and eat the scaffold. In 6 months, the starch is gone, replaced entirely by the patient's own natural bone. This is also a win for sustainability. Medical waste is a massive pollutant. Most bandages and implants are incinerated. Wheat starch scaffolds are carbon neutral, derived from a crop that captures carbon dioxide as it grows. The manufacturing process developed by the UCL team uses the entire flour component, bypassing the energy-intensive process of isolating pure starch. However, we must address the challenges. The greatest strength of starch, its love of water, is also its weakness. When dry, a starch scaffold is stiff. When wet, it can become a soggy gel, losing its structural integrity too quickly. Researchers are currently working on cross-linking methods, using citric acid or heat treatments to reinforce the wet strength of the fiber, ensuring it holds up for the weeks required for tissue formation. There are also regulatory hurdles. Even though flour is safe to eat, injecting it or implanting it requires rigorous testing, especially regarding gluten and potential immune responses. But as we look at the trajectory of this research, the potential is undeniable. The concept of the pasta scaffold is poetic in its circularity. We grow wheat to sustain our bodies metabolically. Now, we are learning to use that same wheat to sustain our bodies structurally. By looking back at one of our oldest materials and applying the newest tools of nanotechnology, we have created a material that is perfectly tuned to the needs of living tissue. It is strong yet degradable, complex yet simple, high-tech yet grown from the earth. The next time you look at a strand of spaghetti, realize you aren't just looking at dinner. You might be looking at the future of bone grafts, skin repair, and the sustainable evolution of modern medicine.